Hello, now I'm going to talk about a couple of build patterns that are presented in this book, Software Configuration Management Pattern Book. It's a quite old book, but I think the concepts are really well designed. So we'll not find big differences from what is the current state of the art here. Of course, there are probably different ways to present it, but I think it's a nice starting point on to see what is the correct or the best practices on the use of configuration management systems. Okay, and I will start basically focus on some of the patterns which are called the build patterns. So you have here basically the patterns that are presented in this pattern language. Okay, I'm going to focus on this part that is related with the that is related with the build of the system. So the idea is that you should have a main. You start by having a main line, so you have a single place where is the code, so that people can basically know where is the reference, the code the code of the project. Okay, usually is a branch, could be develop or master. Okay, so the code is there. Then you have another pattern that enforces or tries to promote that this is really an active development line, in the sense that you have you do continuous integration on it. So when you look at this development line, that the main line as an active development line, you can be sure that the most recent code is there and you can use. Then you use this code. Probably this is the source of sharing and collaboration. And here the private workspace is where you actually implement or do your work in isolation, because when you are programming you need to have some level of isolation so that you can look at the work from that perspective. So that's where you implement, and when you implement it you get the code from a repository. Okay, that's where you can have different versions of the code. You can play with versions current with things like Git. You can have local versions that are only used by you. So, and you have public versions that are shared by different by the different members of the team. But the point is the repository where the code is. Okay. And then there's a particular case of repository that is the third-party code line. This pattern probably with time became less relevant, or let's say in a different way, less difficult to implement. 20 years ago, you don't have Maven or Maven repositories where you have all the versions of the libraries. So if your project use your libraries, and probably if you have different versions of your product using different versions of libraries, you need to be responsible to keep these libraries and the versioning of these libraries. So in some way you need to have a code line where you have the different versions of the libraries you are using, probably one code line for each library, so that you can basically, when you build your system, you go there and depending on the version of your system you are building, and you pick the right libraries. Okay, so that's what is third-party code line, which today is very easy in Maven, because these libraries are on the internet, and basically you just write in Maven that you want this version of the library, and it will download it for you. Then you have the integration build, where you frequently integrate and build your system integrating with the active what is in the active development. So we do continuous integration. You do an integration build frequently, and you do a task level commit, and this task level commit basically is the idea that each commit each task should be in a commit so that you can undo your work and you understand if a bug is because of this task. You can just know what you need to remove from your code line so to get the quality before you committed this task. Okay. And when you do integration build, you run a set of smoke tests. These smoke tests verify that everything okay. And the idea of smoke tests is the idea that when you start developing these projects, you don't have you want to you don't you start having so many tests that they take a long time to run. And if you are implementing a particular task, probably it's not necessary to run them all, and because you want to run them frequently. Okay, so you pick a set of tests that have high probability to actually check the quality of what you are doing. So you pick, for instance, a set of unit tests that are related to your work and a set of regression tests that see, because you know what you are doing, and you decide which type of tests actually, which type of code developed by other people can be broke by your coding. And so you call them smoke tests. Of course, you do a private build of the system before you just push your code back to the active mainline. In this case, probably you need to run, or you're gonna pick a larger have a larger smoke test and a larger number of unit tests and a larger number of regression tests, because probably you don't you do let's consider, or let's suppose that you do each task takes 3-5 hours. Okay, you do this every 3-5 hours, while the integration build you can probably do it more frequently, and you run these more frequently. Okay, just read about the patterns and enjoy.